right, everybody, we're back. Another episode of the Left, Right, Left podcast with your handsome host, Mark R. Chabot, the Silver Fox, United States Marine Corps, Star Sergeant, retired. Hey, appreciate all the support everybody's been giving me. I got to do two quick housekeeping notes before we proceed with tonight's guest. First and foremost, don't forget sponsorship partnership with Motivate. Motivate has supplement products out there. Please continue, to purchase those. I use them. I love them. And you just got to use promo code LEFT15 to get your discount code on those products. Fat burning, all kinds of good vitamins, all things that are healthy and natural supplements for you. So please do that. And I'm excited to unveil the newest sponsor for the podcast, and I'll do something more formal next week, but Devil's Backbone Brewery. How awesome to have a fellow Virginia company sponsor this podcast. So this is the unveiling of their new can. It's got a new camo on it with a new buck. The contents are still the same, but it got this new kind of feel to it, man. I'm really digging it and liking it. So, with tonight's guest, I'm going to go ahead and have this. Mom, don't yell at me.
But well, God bless America.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and have a beer with the general. Okay.
Where's mine?
All right, sir. I'm going to send you a 6-pack. Okay. I'm going to do a quick intro here. This gentleman is, man, I am just so happy that he's here with us. He is my first general that I've had in the podcast. He served for over 34 years, career infantryman, did tremendous things in the Marine Corps. And I tell you, like, we get a report card sometimes when we're career Marines, and his report card from everybody that I know is always just very valuable, very insightful, and just a humble leader who takes care of his people and takes care of his mission. I met him through a working group at Marine Corps Base Quantico, where he was our group leader when he was a 1-star general. We talked about outsourcing of small unit leadership to civilian agencies. And I really felt like it was one of the first times that somebody, that was at that level could actually relate to a lot of the thoughts that a lot of us were thinking about as we were going through those topics. So without further ado, I wanted to welcome everybody, my friend, Major General Jason Bohm, United States Marine Corps, retired. Sir, thanks.
Well, thanks so much, Mark. Yeah, it's my absolute pleasure and honor to be here with you. I applaud what you're doing.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the support very much. And I know that, we're on a tight timeline window here, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Would you mind telling everybody a little bit about your upbringing and your background, please?
Yeah, honestly, I came from a somewhat broken background. My parents got divorced when I was young. My dad lived in a different state. I saw him one weekend a month and in the summer times, but I was raised by my mom. And so one of the things that, the first thing that attracted me to the military was when I was in grade school, there was an oversized book about the Civil War by American Heritage. And you open that book up and it had these oversized paintings of the major battles of the Civil War. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And so that got me interested in the military at an early age. And then I turned to the bookshelf, and the first book I read cover to cover was called 30 Seconds Over Tokyo. And it had to do with the Jimmy Doolittle raid after the bombing of Pearl Harbor in World War II, flying Army medium bombers off of Navy aircraft carriers to bomb Tokyo to basically motivate the nation to go ahead and fight back against the Japanese Imperial forces. But the reason that's important is because it was that book about the Pacific Theater that got me really interested in warfare, and specifically in the Asia-Pacific theater in World War II. And to cut to the chase, who was romping and stomping across the Pacific in World War II but United States Marines? Wow. So my love for the Corps started at a really young age, actually in grade school. And in fact, my mother has a letter in her scrapbook from me to a major that says, "Dear Jason, thank you for your interest in the Marine Corps, but seeing as though you're only 12 years old, we can't help you yet." And the guy told me to stay in school. And little did I know, that this major would wind up being me someday as being an RSCO myself. So listen to his guidance and his direction, and then really use that as an opportunity to continue to study about the Corps, learn about its history, tradition, and its legacy. And then I've had some key individuals along my path that really put me on course. And if I could share one story with you, it's about Gunnery Sergeant John Hudson. So when I was in high school, I knew I wanted to be a Marine, and Gunnery Sergeant Hudson was the Assistant Marine Officer Instructor for the NROTC unit at Cornell University. And Gunny Hud became my big brother. He became my mentor, my coach, my trainer, as this young guy who just knew he wanted to be a Marine. He used to allow me to go to the field when he trained his midshipmen to prepare for OCS. He taught me how to PT. He taught me about leadership. He gave me my first high and tight haircut. He allowed me to go on drill meets with the Cornell University drill team. And so Gunny was instrumental in my development because I didn't have that positive male role model at home because my parents were divorced. And the day that I intended to enlist in the Marine Corps, he changed the whole course of my life. Because I told him, Gunny, today's the day I'm going to enlist in the delayed entry program. And he sat me down. He said, Jason, don't do it. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, look, I know you. I know you're going to be a Marine. He says, you need to go do this NROTC program. And I really didn't know much about it other than when I had been exposed to it with him. And I respected the Gunny so much. I called my recruiter up. I said, sorry, not going. And I applied for the program. And I didn't get it. And I didn't have money really to go to college. He said, well, no problem. I said, well, I'm going to boot camp. No. He says, you apply for the program, but you're not going to get a scholarship. You do what's called the college program. You're going to have to pay for your first year. And then while you're in your first year, you compete and they'll put you in for a 3-year scholarship. I said, okay, Gunny, I'll do what I got to do. So I applied for the program and I worked all kinds of odd jobs my freshman year of college. I filled soda machines. I was a police dispatcher. I worked on a booze cruise that went down the Chicago River. And sure enough, they put me in for the scholarship. And the end of the year came and I still hadn't heard back. And I said, no problem. I'm going to boot camp. Except this time it wasn't Gunnery Sergeant John Hudson. It was Staff Sergeant Derek Howell, who was my AMOI at my unit that I had joined in Chicago. And he told me the same thing. He's like, slow down, Tex. We'll get you an answer. And they did, and I was able to stay in school. And, the rest is history of the 34 years of service. But the whole point in sharing all this is the fact that I was raised by staff NCOs. Yep. And it's because of that I attribute any success that I had in the Corps.
That is a recurring theme about you on the report card we talked about earlier is that, that's one of the reasons why I wanted you to come on because I know how much you value staff NCOs and value their input, their counsel, and also their honesty. That's what we pride ourselves on.
So, yeah, you are that.
Hey, well, yes, sir. Try. Hey, well, all your peers were out there learning, the disco moves, from Saturday Night Fever. You had your face in a book, which explains, why you're the renowned historian that you are today. Okay, so you're in the Marines now. You go through your, TBS, and you go through, your your infantry school, and you're out there serving in the fleet. Like all of us, we run through a crossroads at some point in our career. We're like, okay, we're all in and we're going to do this and go, plow all the way, to 20 plus years, or we're going to decide, to depart and take our talents and our skills elsewhere. At what point did the Marine Corps kind of grab you and say, hey, like, this is what I want to do for like almost my entire adult life?
Honestly, it's when I read a book by Burke Davis called Marine. And it was the story of Chesty Puller. And I read that in high school. I was told I knew I was going to be a career Marine before I even got my commission.
Oh, wow.
And, but what I will tell you is that you do have to struggle with that a little bit while you're in. And what I struggled with, I had some awesome officers that I served with as a young company grade officer. And they were at that inflection point where they had to make a decision after their first term of obligated service was up, whether to stay in or not. And there were several of them that I thought were just stellar officers that decided to get out because they were tired of dealing with the bureaucracy and all the crap that we deal with on a regular basis as part of being in a military organization. And I thought about that long and hard, and I said, yeah, I'm with you, brother. I got it. That stuff frustrates me too. But not to toot my own horn in saying this, but I always looked at that and I said, if all the good officers wind up getting out of the Marine Corps because they're frustrated with the system, where does that leave the Marines? Who's going to lead those Marines into the next combat? And to me, I was not willing to let some of those, let's just say, less than stellar officers who were staying in for the wrong reasons, to let them be the ones to lead those Marines into combat, because I just cared too much about them and our country.
Fair enough. That's a great point. Somebody's got to do it. Is the way I look at it.
That's right.
You have done so much over the course of 34 years, and I won't run through everything, but just some of the highlights. Career infantryman. You've been to numerous skirmishes. Before the two front war we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. You had company command, you had battalion command, you had regimental command. You did 4 tours. Throughout your time as a 1-star and a 2-star general. I know this is a hard question. It's broad, but can you kind of talk about like what is the thing that just the totality of all that experience that you took away from it and that you could share with people? Like what was like the secret sauce that just kept you going all those years?
Hands down, it's the Marines.
Love it.
I'm sitting here now after 34 years, and my new position is as the Dean of Liberty University's School of Government. And people ask me, I retired officially on June 1st, and I started here on July 1st. And they asked me, they're like, hey, has that transition been hard for you? You hear all the stories about Marines who, it's all I've done my entire adult life, and now you're dealing with civilians and academics on top of that. And I said, well, no, I actually have no problem with that. The reason I stayed in the Marine Corps as long as I did is because I got to serve beside men and women of honor and character every single day. We had a clear mission and we had a purpose. And that's all I ever wanted, to be valued, to lead Marines, and to accomplish our mission. And that's exactly what I'm doing here at Liberty. I get to serve beside young people trying to better themselves, people of honor and character. We have a very clear mission here, and we're definitely serving a purpose. So I just feel like I've moved on to my next assignment. And it's that same theme that has continued throughout my life.
That's fantastic. I think I realized when I retired that how great the Marines, in the Marine Corps, and that when you're serving, but never does become so clear as when you're outside of the entity of people trying to improve themselves, and you're just out there walking the streets and listening to conversations. You're like, man, what I did was really special, and the Marine Corps and the Marines that are in it are very, very special, and they are awesome. So,
and I'll tell you this too: the nation understands that. In my journeys as Marine Corps recruiting and out here in the civilian world now, people respect the Marines and they know we're the best, and unfortunately we know we're the best too. And we are more than happy to share that with people, but they would agree with that. And it's based off of fact. And we all know that too.
Yes, sir. Let me just back up the clock just a little tiny bit. Okay. Because there's a lot of colonels in the Marine Corps. And there's not a lot of generals in the Marine Corps. I think it's about 78 Marine Corps generals about.
If you add joint in there, it's hovers around 100, just over 100.
Yeah, it's a very small pool, right? And not everybody, obviously makes. Matter of fact, Brigadier General is the hardest rank to make in the Marine Corps. Then First Sergeant is the second hardest to make on the aggregate percentage wise. When you were serving as a colonel, and you're competing to be a general, and you got the phone call that said that, hey, Jason Bohm, you're our guy, you're going to be a 1-star. Like what was that feeling like being, moving up to that kind of level?
I didn't really think of it as much as becoming a general. I was more concerned with the fact that I could stay on active duty and continue to serve as a Marine. That's what mattered more to me.
Yeah.
Honestly, I said, hey, make me a lieutenant or a captain again. As long as I could stay in and keep serving, I would have been happy to do that. Because honestly, being a general is not as much fun as being a lieutenant or a captain.
Yeah, no doubt.
So it was a sobering moment. At the time, it was General Neller for me who called me. I was the director of Expeditionary Warfare School at the time. And I was in my office after PT, and I get a phone call, and it's him. And he gave me the word. I was very appreciative of that. And but the senior leaders of the Corps, and General Neller no different, made it quite clear to my class of what we call, my class of cohorts that got promoted with me, BGSOC class. They make it clear, and they say, hey, look, don't think you're special. Because to your point, there's over 900 colonels in the Marine Corps. and they're all top quality people. Any one of them could fill those shoes. And so the analogy they give to us is they say, hey, if you're on the bus driving across the 14th Street Bridge and that thing crashed and burns and you all drown and die, there's no skip for the Marine Corps. We'll pick 12 replacements and, the Marine Corps will continue on. And that's true.
Right.
No man, no woman is indispensable in the Corps. And in fact, we know as leaders that we should be doing everything we can to be training our replacement so that we're not indispensable. And so that was good and a humbling lesson from our senior leaders to new one stars, that you're not as special as you may think. Do your part, do your mission, take care of your Marines.
Right. No doubt. We got a lot of viewers that are active duty and retirees and stuff that tune into the program. I think it's kind of like a mystique a little bit about like what generals do daily basis. We all know that you're a picture on the wall and we know that you guys are busy and stuff, but is there like any peek behind the curtain about like what your experience was like a general? Because I remember my time working with Ryan Heritage. It just seemed like he was just always on travel or, always had to be someplace and just it. Truthfully, sir, I don't know, the Marine Corps was his life, like almost about 20 hours a day. But what was your experience like?
Well, every billet is different. So when I was the Commandant General of the Marine Corps Recruiting Command and working with General Heritage, I was on the road all the time. I had Marines spread across 48 different states, and those Marines deserve your time. They deserve the opportunity to speak face to face with you. And so you want to get out there engaged, and then you're trying to balance that schedule with your obligations back in the headquarters to provide direction and guidance to your staff. And then we all have bosses. So you have to balance that with what is the boss's battle rhythm and how do you tie into that to make sure that you're servicing all three of those different groups of people. And then, oh, by the way, to your point, if you have a family, you need to make time for them as well. And so what you do with your staff is you lay down some ground rules, and I'm talking to some of my employees here today about this concept of sharpening the saw. You have to make sure you make time for yourself, for your family, and then for your mission. And unfortunately in the Marine Corps, our mission is our family, because the Corps itself is our family, and we care just as much about those young Marines as we do our children at home. And so that can be a challenging thing sometimes, but by the time you get to that level, you have figured out your personal battle rhythm. You figured out time management pretty well. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't have gotten to that point. And so it's just a matter of tweaking things based off of the particular nuances of the billet you're in at that particular time. And but like being in MCRIC, for example, extremely busy on the road constantly. But I also was the chief of staff at Strike Force NATO and lived in Portugal for 2 years. And those bubbas don't start work until 09. So I had all kinds of quiet time and before they would show up in the morning, and then have the afternoon coffee. They were great people. I loved the opportunity to serve beside them, but just different mindset than United States Marines. And as you know, we're pretty action-oriented people who have a bias for action. So we're our own worst enemies and working those 20-hour days often.
Yeah,
my thing is I'm a people person. I don't like sitting behind a computer. I don't like doing meetings via Teams. I like getting face to face. And when you do that, you spend the whole day engaging and building and strengthening relationships, which means at the end of the day, you got to go and address those 100 emails that hit your inbox too, because you've been focused on people during the day when the people are available to you.
I think that's the right thing to do. I mean, I think
absolutely
similar how I carried myself. Say, hey, the admin will be there and I'll have to get to it eventually, but there's nothing more important than personal relations and what we used to call trooping the lines, right?
Yeah, that's strength of the Corps.
Absolutely. You alluded to it earlier. I wish we could stand forever, but we can't. And you transitioned out and you're a man of faith. So it made perfect sense for you to leap into, Liberty University and start, getting working on, building that program, improving the program. But for a lot of the enlisted guys and even a lot of the officers that serve, they have like a vacancy once they depart. A lot of them get, really sad and, and get emotional about the loss, and just having the proximity of closeness to all their brothers and sisters out there. for you, like, are you feeling any of that kind of like emotional, like, type way, or how you feeling?
I feel great, and I'll explain why.
Yeah.
Because I'm still a Marine, and I'm still connected to Marines that live beside me, serve beside me, and serve, service beside me. And so here, in the time that I've been here, I moved to Lynchburg, Virginia, 6 months ago. I joined the Marine Corps League. The first days I was here, I was in a Walmart, and I met a guy walking in front of me with a Marine Corps T-shirt. I say, "Hey, you a Marine?" He goes, "Sure am, retired Master Gunnery Sergeant." He's now one of my best friends here, and he invited me to a breakfast that group of Marines not affiliated with the Marine Corps League. We get together the first and third Thursday of every month at the Cracker Barrel right across the street from where we work. And we all break bread together, and there's about a squad of us that get together, all the way from World War II, 92-year-old World War II Korea vet, to Marines that just graduated boot camp. And we get together, we break bread, and then at the end of the meal, we stand up, come to a position of attention, and sing loud and thunderously the Marines hymn, and the whole restaurant applauds for us, and they love it. I also joined the American Legion. On the campus, we have several Marine veterans. In fact, the president of the Student Veteran Association is a young corporal in the Marine Corps Reserve. And that Master Guns works at Liberty University with me. And there are several others. And as an example of how we're leveraging this, at Liberty, we do something pretty special called convocation. And they make all of the students, and there are 16,000 of them that are resident students, come to the basketball auditorium, and they do fellowship together, and then they have a guest speaker come and provide some wisdom. We did that today, and guess what we did at today's convocation? We did a Marine Corps cake cutting ceremony in front of 16,000 students in our dress blue Alphas.
Oh,
and it
beautiful.
was the Master Guns, it was the corporal, it was me, and it was a couple of other sergeants that we have in the area. And it was extraordinary, and the love and the respect that the community has for Marines, and knowing that you're a part of that, and you have Marine brothers and sisters that you're still working beside on a daily basis. I don't feel like I've left the Marine Corps. I feel like the Marine Corps is right here with me.
Good for you, General. That's phenomenal. And that's kind of the lesson, the pay it forward thing that you just dealt to, to the viewers, is that, hey, plug in out there. Traditionally, the ones that you see that are really, really going through the emotional tolls and the trauma are those that kind of isolate themselves.
Absolutely.
So, hey, stay
right.
connected with your brothers and sisters out there. A lot of agencies, a lot of organizations. I'm a part of one of your favorite Marine Corps League chapters right there in Triangle, Virginia. Mickey Fins. I'm there.
Right outside the front gate.
There you go. We do our
and actually, I'm doing a cake cutting with Marine Corps League in Fredericksburg this Saturday. So, stay connected. To your point, that's absolutely essential.
Beautiful. I will definitely try to make it down there, sir, if I can.
Sure.
Okay, so now you are at Liberty, and can you just talk a little bit about what you're doing as far as being like the dean of the government, section of Liberty University? Like, what does that entail, and like, how are you shaping, the next generation of warfighters and students?
Yeah, that's a great question. So probably the best way to tell you is to start with our mission. And the mission of the university is very clear. We train champions for Christ. And I went back to my training command days and I said, is that really what we do? Or do we train and educate champions for Christ? Because in the Marine Corps, they're different and distinct. We train for certainty, and there's certainty that you're going to face challenges in life. And we want to make sure that you have a Christian-based worldview to be able to deal with those challenges you're going to confront in life. But we educate for uncertainty. And in the Marine Corps, we build flexible, adaptable problem solvers to make sure they don't get overcome by the fog of war, and they'll adapt and overcome and always succeed in whatever they do across the full spectrum of operations. We're taking those same concepts and we're teaching them to our students here. And the great thing about Liberty and the School of Government is I have a unique balance of academics on one side, these people that are PhDs and have done academics their whole career, but then I got practitioners. and the practitioners are the one that are bringing the game to the team. And an example of this, we teach a course on strategic intelligence, and the director who teaches strategic intelligence is retired Rear Admiral Tony Cothran, the former director of Naval Intelligence. So that's a quality of instructors that I have here. Former Secretary of State and former Director of CIA, Mike Pompeo, he works for us, Helms School of Government. He's our distinguished chair of government. So we're able to bring talent like that in to give our students a practical experience to train and educate them to be able to succeed in government using practical real-world training to put them in positions of influence with a Christian worldview to make sure we're bringing the right values, the right morals, the right ethics to our government, and we're taking care of our great nation going forward.
Yeah, way to balance them out a little bit so they don't get out of balance. It's always good to lean on something like Christianity. Yeah, no doubt. That's phenomenal, General. Let me pivot on you a little bit and ask you this. You got a lot of experience with recruiting duty, a lot of experience dealing with young people, a lot of like entry level, being over at training command. You've led thousands upon thousands of men in combat, women in combat too. So there's a little bit of poo-pooing going on about the military, and I see it a lot on social media. I know that you're probably not as attuned to those things as I am. I'm on like every one of them, and I scroll through that stuff every day. And there's a lot of people out there I would never let my son or daughter serve in the military. Just it's not worth it. The people don't care about them. They're just numbers. They're just going to turn statistic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think you and I, with over 60 years of collective military service, understand the importance of raising the right hand and indeed, that blanket of freedom that we provide our citizens of our nation. So what would you say to the young folks out there that are thinking about serving, or to the families and stuff, to build some comfort, so that way we can continue to pay forward and continue to have great people to serve our nation?
Absolutely. So, we use the adage of the nature of war is enduring, but the character of war is ever evolving. And because of that, the Marine Corps evolves, our society evolves over time as well. But what I would tell them is the Marines, the sailors, the airmen, the guardians of today, they're just as good as any past generation. I have been so impressed with the young people I get to engage with every day. They're professional, they're confident, they're capable. Now, the problem is that the media is not showing us those people. They're showing us the people that, I don't want to disparage anyone, but I think you all know what I'm talking about in terms of people that don't look like us, act like us, and they hold very progressive and left-leaning views. That's not the standard. That's not what is attracted to the Marine Corps. And those people, most of them aren't even qualified to be Marines. Okay, but those people who meet the mental, moral, and physical qualifications to be Marines, and let me tell you, there's all this talk about, only 23% of American society meets that criteria. So what? That's the case. It has been. Yeah, it's lower than it used to be, but there's more than enough in that pool of people for us to make. And the Marine Corps has been the only service to make its recruiting mission throughout all these challenging times. And I can go into why the other services haven't made it, but the reason the Marine Corps made it is because we attract a certain breed. We attract people that want to be the best, who want to be challenged, who aren't signing on for a job, but want to earn the right to earn the title Marine. And when we find those people, they're just as damn good as they always have been when I first came in, when you first came in, and before we even got here. We're always going to have back in the old Corps talk, and I'll be honest with you, I'm succumbed to that as well for a bit. And then I went back and I was watching and looking at some pictures of me as a platoon commander with my platoon and doing bull in the ring and some of the things we used to do. And I look at that and go, man, I remember us being a lot more squared away than those pictures would lead me to believe. So I think maybe I thought I was better than I actually was back then. And I think that's just human nature. But the other thing I talk to parents about when I say, look, I use my own daughter as an example.
Right.
And if I could tell her story, my youngest daughter is a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps today, and she does signals intelligence. And the fact that I could not be prouder of my own daughter and more happy with her joining the Corps is indicative of what I think about the prospects of young people being successful in the Corps. So my daughter and it was when I was at the 5th Marines, and my daughter was a junior at San Clemente High School. And I had to go on deployment, but when I came back from deployment, we had orders to Virginia. And I said, well, what do you want to do after high school? And she said, well, Dad, I'm thinking of going to college in Virginia. I said, okay, great. When I get back, we go to Virginia. We'll go look at the schools. We'll figure out where you want to go. In the middle of deployment, I'm in El Asad fighting ISIL. I get contacted from her, and she goes, Dad, I think I want to be a Marine. I was like, what? I'm like, where did that come from? I never pushed her in that direction, never talked to her about it. And I said, are you serious? She said, yes, I am. Then I called her mom and said, is she serious? Yes, she is. So when I came home, I did the recruiter man thing. I tagged her out. I put the benefit tags in front of her. I talked to her, made sure she was serious. I said, okay, let's do it. And I brought her into the recruiter, and, they started the process. But then we visited the colleges as well, because I said, hey, just in case, let's have a backup plan. It's a prudent thing to do. And she picked Mary Baldwin College in Stoughton, Virginia as her first choice. She got accepted, and they offered her a 4-year academic scholarship. And she got all excited. And my inside voice was going, uh-oh. And I said, okay. I said, it's time to make a decision. What do you want to do? And she said, Dad, I want to serve. And then she quickly followed that with saying, I want to earn my own way. And I said, well, let's be clear. You did earn your own way. You earned a 4-year academic scholarship. And oh, by the way, we've been putting money aside, so college being paid for is not an issue for you. And she said, yes, Dad, but I want to serve my country. And I put my hand on her shoulder and I said, you know what? That's a very mature decision that you made. I turned around and I went, fuck yeah! Because I tell you that I, with all sincerity and having lived through this several times, and being a dean of a school in a university right now, I can tell you with all assurance, there is no academic institute in the United States of America or the world that can replicate the training and education that a young man and woman will receive by earning the title Marine. You can't replicate that in academia. So I knew that the life skills that my daughter would learn by earning the title Marine would set her up for success in life, no matter what direction she wanted to go. And in fact, now she's a staff sergeant. She has not earned her bachelor's degree yet. She's associates working towards a bachelor's, but they have her teaching college. She is now responsible for the 2652 SIG instruction on the software of how to run SIG-int and doing artificial intelligence. She won't even tell me what she's working on. The old adage, well, tell me what you're working on. She said, Dad, I can't. I'm like, what do you mean you can't? I have all the clearances. I'm kind of senior. You don't have the need to know.
That's right.
Oh,
Need to know.
She's right. And what a proud moment for me to see that she's arrived. And even though she doesn't have her full college degree, which she will get whenever she works through it, she's teaching college courses. And then Liberty University heard about her, and they had their cyber warfare course, and the Air Force ROTC invited her down to come and do presentations for the Marine Corps.
Beautiful.
So she's teaching at a 4-year academic university that's accredited, and all she has is her experience and knowledge based off of what the Corps gave her. And she hit it out of the park. I cannot be prouder. So that's what I'm talking about, is that so much more that the Marine Corps can give you in life practical experiences, that's why you have so many CEOs and politicians and people that have just done extraordinary things in life that first earned the title Marine, like J.D. Vance, who, now is going to be sitting in the White House. And that's the type of impact that the Marine Corps has on people's future. So people that say the youth of today aren't up to par, I wholeheartedly disagree. And the fact that they say the Marine Corps is not up to par today, I know that's not a fact. That is absolute falsehood. The Marine Corps is doing great. yes, we had some issues with force design and different views on that, and people are allowed to have different views on that. But the nation and the Marine Corps has a way of righting the ship over time. And I have to believe that General Smith and Sergeant Major Ruiz, who's one of my former sergeants major, by the way, are bringing the Marine Corps in the right direction. They openly admit we'll have to tweak things across as we go along. The Commandant has said from the very beginning, this is an iterative process. We will learn and adjust as we go. We have to trust him and trust the Sergeant Major that they have the Corps' best interests in mind.
Yeah, big shout out to Sergeant Major Rees, my brother. Him and I were DI schools instructors together, sir, in
Nice.
2007. Phenomenal human being, and I think he was at 3.5 when you were at
He
5th
was.
Marines, correct? Yeah,
Yes.
Phenomenal dude. So hey, shout out to you, Carlos. Couple of really strong points that you made in there, sir. It's funny you kind of talked about the intangibles. I was talking to a kid in high school. Him and his mom stopped by to drop off some decorations to my wife, and he just kind of joined me in the garage, and he started asking me military questions. I saw the U globe and anchors on my wall, and mom came out and started talking about tangible skills. And, I want him to do something, that's going to, carry out in the civilian sector. And almost to your point, I told her, I was like, man, but you can't sleep on the intangibles that the Marine Corps instills in you. Like the only reason why I'm as successful as I am today is because of not because of the academics the Marine Corps taught me. It's all those intangibles, just the basic stuff, put forth effort in everything that you do, all those leadership traits and principles that get drilled into you, give maximum effort, do every assignment that you get, act like it's your last, leave everything better than the way you found it. All
Absolutely.
That stuff is important as being, an IT specialist and then transition to be an IT specialist when you get out. Very important stuff. So.
Yeah, so all that equates to our institutional culture.
That's right.
And no one else can touch that. You asked the question, what's the secret sauce earlier? That's what it is. Because the other services have tried to replicate us time and time again, but they just don't get it because they don't have the institutional culture, history, and tradition that we do.
That's right. That's right. Hey, Joe, that was fantastic. I gained a lot from it. Wanted to just ask you just a couple more things before I get you back on your schedule. First off, a renowned historian, and you're also an author of 2 books, From the Cold War to ISIL, and also Washington's Marines. And I'll flash those up for the viewers so you can see those, and then you can go ahead and investigate those. But General, would you mind telling everybody a little bit about your books, why you wrote your books, just a quick synopsis of that?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So I'll start with the first one, From the Cold War to ISIL. So I got to say up front that I'd never been one of those guys to write I've been there, I done that book. I was adamantly against that. But it was when I was the director of the Expeditionary Warfare School, and I was encouraging my students and my faculty to write for our professional journal, the Marine Corps Gazette. And in the Marine Corps, back to your leadership traits and principles, we lead by example. And so I took on a little bit more ambitious project. It's something that I really wanted to write for my kids because I was gone, just like many Marines are, so often. And I didn't really bring that stuff home with me like a lot of us don't. We internalize it. But I wanted to tell them our story to understand why Dad was away as often as he was. And then I also served on the Joint Staff and used to have a hand in publishing the National Military Strategy. So what struck me was originally I wanted to call the book Changing Missions for Changing Times because it was in a post-Cold War environment where the U.S. military was looking for its soul. It was looking for its mission, its role, as we no longer had to face an existential threat. And as you all know, we went through these iterations of different types of operations. And if you know your American history, you'll know that America only goes to war an average of once every 15 years since 1775. And my generation, Vietnam ended in 1975. In 1990, we faced our next war, right, with Desert Storm. And unfortunately, my IOC class was the first IOC class to go to 29 Palms to prepare to go fight in Kuwait, and we were running range 400, and and the ground war started, and we were getting ready to fly home with orders in hand, and that damn war only lasted 5 days. So we all missed our opportunity, and we're thinking, damn it, now we got to wait another 15 years before we get our chance to go. But if you know your history, in between those 15 years, the nation literally does hundreds of operations short of war. And we call them different things over the years: the banana wars, the Mutwa, small wars, you name it. But those operations are just as inherently dangerous as a conventional war, depending on if somebody's shooting at you or not. So if you stay in the Marine Corps, you're going to get plenty of opportunity to get action in different ways across that full spectrum of operations as the nation's premier crisis response force. So that was a great opportunity to be able to do that. And I, quite frankly, Mark, I think I lost your principal question because the book. So thank you. So so what I was able to do here is basically share the story of how the military was searching for a mission all the way from the end of the Cold War until we went back into Iraq in the fight against ISIL. And that's what that first book covers. I did not mean to publish it. I meant to write it for my internal audience and my family. But there's a gentleman named Charlie Niemeyer, who is the former director of the Marine Corps History Division. And Charlie used to come and teach classes at EWS, and he encouraged me to submit it for publication. I said, Charlie, I don't want to do that. I know that the way some will look at that, self-promotion. And he said, no, you really need to do it because that's a time frame within our history that there's not a lot written about what Marines have done. And so then he was playing into my recruiter man strings and saying, we got to tell the Marine Corps story. So I went ahead and had it published, and Naval Institute Press picked it up. The other aspect was, as Marines, history and tradition are so important to us, that in my own self-studies, I knew there was a gap in my knowledge about the birth of our Corps. We know about the myth of Tun Tavern and Samuel Nicholas, but a lot of those myths are incorrect. And so I was doing a deep dive into that study on my own, and I was like, this story is too good not to tell. And so I put my research to paper. Again, now Commandant General of the Marine Corps Recruiting Command, I was trying to do anything I can to plug the Marine Corps and get the Marine Corps story out there. And that's really why I published this second one, is to make sure that the nation knew the history and tradition of the birth of our Corps, and also help the recruiting effort where I could.
Hands down. That book, again, is called Washington Marines. And I think you're spot on about that, General. I mean, really, we teach it at, entry-level training. You teach the whole history from, 1775 until current. But really, we only focus on, not only, but we predominantly focus on, Bella Wood in 1918 forward. We don't really talk a lot about what the Marine Corps is doing in the Civil War, particularly, especially when you were drilling down about the details of how it all came to fruition. And I listened to, your podcast when you were talking about your book, and it's really awesome. I just like how a lot of the stereotypes that we say, it's this, it's that. It's just really not that simple. And it wasn't as clean as everybody thinks it is. All of a sudden, Continental Congress raised, Marines in a bar, and then they went off and they were their own entity, and they went and did whatever they wanted to do. It is not that clean at all. It's a very complicated story. So
yeah, and you see the history there of things that we're dealing with today and where it started from. Because when the Continental Congress authorized the forming of 2 battalions of Marines, they ordered George Washington to cherry pick people with seafaring experience out of his army, holding the British under siege in Boston, to create these 2 battalions. And then the real reason we were created is to conduct a naval campaign to capture Halifax, Nova Scotia, which was the British's main Royal Navy fleet base to do repairs and replenish at the time. And they told Washington to lead that effort. And Washington was like, hell no, I don't have the manpower. I'm trying to form an army out of these militia units from New England. I can't do that. And that's when John Hancock, famous name in our history, told, hey, George, don't worry about it. But these Marines are important, and we're still going to form them. And that's when Samuel Nicholas received his commission and became the first recruiter in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, amazing. And I'd encourage you guys out there to please, check out, General Bohm's books. And also, listen to some of his podcasts that he's done out there too. He just finished one up with Vic Rubel on the Marine Corps Association Scuttlebutt podcast. That one's really good. It's a real good deep dive into, into the general's, research and his the historical, nature of him sharing, the story in depth detail. So I've truly enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I know I got about 5 minutes here before I get you back on schedule. I did before, we sign off, want to just give you the opportunity, for any save rounds, any shout outs, any last wisdom, the floor is yours to close out here for the night.
Well, I appreciate it, Mark. And let me start out by thanking you for holding this podcast to begin with, because again, it's all about getting the story out there. I'll tell you, over time, commanders create what we call a commander's intent, right? And a command philosophy about what's most important to you when you go into a unit and what the expectations are you have of your Marines and what they can expect of you. And as I started this podcast with, I'll end with, and that's the fact that I was raised by staff NCOs and had the utmost respect for them. And over time, my command philosophy has evolved from 10 items. It was as high as 25 items at one time. And then as you get more mature and more senior in the Corps, you understand that if you don't have a concise, impactful, and memorable command philosophy, your Marines are going to blow it off. It's just going to be a piece of paper sitting on a wall somewhere that nobody's reading. So what I like to do is share mine with you, because these were lessons that were instilled in me from staff NCOs in the Corps. And in my 34 years of service, it's come full circle. And I realized these basic principles are what makes us successful in both our personal and professional life. And the first one, and I called these the Fighting Five principles because I developed them and published them when I was 5th Marines, Fighting Fifth. And the number one principle is mission comes first. And we understand what that means. And I share with groups of young Marines, I say, hey, look, if I say to the sergeant, take that hill, what's going to happen? He's going to take that damn hill. But he knows and I know that everyone going up standing on that hill may not come down standing. And we understand that sometimes accomplishing your mission requires tough decisions and may require sacrifice.
Right.
But that's what distinguishes Marines. We understand that, and we go to the sound of the guns willingly with that knowledge in hand. And a point I try to make to young Marines is you have to apply that same level of dedication in your professional life as a Marine to your personal life and your role in your family as well. You can do both. And it's a shame when we have Marines that don't figure that out and they sacrifice their family for their professional careers. That's not what you want to do. So make sure you have the right balance between the two. The second point is to lead by example. And what I tell people here, particularly in today's connected world, is you have to understand that every single word you say, every single deed that you do is being watched and listened to by others. Now, people, even when they don't know it, they're watching and they're listening. And you set the bar for where your unit's going to be. Your unit will become a reflection of you. And people don't realize that, and just the enormous impact that they have. And I particularly like to share a story about it doesn't matter what rank you are, how senior you are, every individual in the unit has a responsibility for leading by example. And I use the example of PFC John Guppy when I was a platoon commander in Fast Company. And I would have my new Marine show up, sit kneecap to kneecap with him and start to get to know that Marine. And this is back when we still wore Woodlands and black combat boots, and we all take pride in our uniform. I knew I was the leader of that unit and that I had a responsibility to lead by example. But as I'm sitting there talking to PFC Guppy, I'm looking down, and all I could do is stare at his boots. I don't hear a thing he's saying. And I asked the Marines, why do you think that was? And they all say, because his boots were nasty. And I said, no, the opposite. He had the best shine damn boots that I've ever seen in my life. This brand new PFC, first day in our unit, most junior man in the unit, just raised the bar for me. And I say, what do you think I did when I went home that night? I was spit shining to get my trash as good as Guppy had just set that bar on. And then what did that do to the whole platoon when the lieutenant showed up the next day with his trash looking better? You know, and I tell them that's the impact every single Marine has in their unit if they will just live by that adage of lead by example. And the third one is balanced excellence. And when I say that, I ask, what do you think I mean? And most people say, oh, balance between personal and professional life. I said, no. Balanced excellence means that you as a Marine must succeed in everything that you do. You can't just be good at the areas that you're most comfortable in. You have to be good in all areas. Why does the nation want a Marine Corps when it doesn't need a Marine Corps? As General Krulak found out, it's because we succeed in everything we do. We do windows. We do whatever the nation needs. And because we train our Marines to be flexible, adaptable problem solvers, we get it done. That's what balanced excellence means, is excel in all areas, which leads to the fourth principle, that is to constantly seek self-improvement. You know better than anyone else what your strengths and weaknesses are. Use your strengths to help others turn their weaknesses into strengths. More importantly, be honest with yourself, assess your own weaknesses, and then come up with action plans to turn them into strengths. And what I say is the good news is you have thousands of brothers and sisters here to help you do that. Mm-hmm. You just got to utilize them and work together as a team, because as a team, we can accomplish anything. There's no obstacle too high. There's no challenge too great we can't overcome as United States Marines. You have to believe that. And then the final and fifth foundational principle is we need to be men and women of character. And that means we do nothing illegal, immoral, and unethical. And if you can live by that simple principle, we won't have hazing, we won't have sexual assaults, we won't have fraud, we won't have court-martials or captain's mass, because everyone will be doing the right thing and being the professionals that our nation expects us to be. And every one of those five principles overlaps and encompasses a total Marine concept in what they need to do to be successful in life and in their Marine Corps mission.
Yeah. Excuse me a second, General. I got to yell up to my wife and tell her to throw a razor down here. Right. Yep. So I'm going to shave. I'm going to go get my hair cut, and I'm going to call Sergeant Major Ruiz and see if he's got a spot for me back in the team.
I'm sure he does, sir.
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. No, in all seriousness, it's all legit. It's funny you kind of talked about that. From time to time, I go over the academy and and talk to some of the Marines over there, and a lot of times they're looking for these really profound things, for us older guys to say to them. And usually the first thing I say to them is, the biggest ticket, to get you to the end game, to get you, to your 20 years and set yourself up for something else that you want to do in life, is really just to keep your damn nose clean.
That's it. Basic.
Colonel John Evans used to say, always wear clean underwear.
Yeah.
He used to say that all the time.
Block and tackle.
Yeah. It is.
And the people who could do that the best are the ones that continue to elevate in their careers. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's step number one. You can be the smartest, you can be the best at anything that you do, most proficient Marine, but if you can't keep your nose clean, you're constantly veering in and out of the those moral and unethical situations and navigating through that gray area, you are going to get caught, and it ain't going to matter how damn good you are.
Absolutely. And your impact and mission, you're not setting the example, you're not demonstrating balanced excellence, and you're not trying to improve yourself.
Yeah, no doubt. General, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you came and joined, me and the viewers, tonight. All your insight, your wisdom that you dropped is much appreciated. You're here because, again, I'm not trying to speak ill upon anybody else, but you're a real deal. You're a real deal guy. You're honest. You're genuine. You treat everybody with dignity and respect. And you never carried yourself as, a guy who had, stars on his collar, and never carried yourself in a manner of like anybody's beneath you. You always, in my view, were humble, and you looked at all the Marines, regardless of their rank, regardless of position and billet, as though they're a part of the team. So
They are.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for saying that, Sergeant Major. That's the strength of the Corps.
Yeah, no doubt. It is in our people.
Mm-hmm.
We are at 1900 even, so I am going to be the good senior enlisted advisor tonight and turn you back, to your schedule. Again, I appreciate it. AA, for all the viewers out there, again, thank you all for all your support. I hope you enjoyed, General Bohm this evening. And again, look for his books. And if you have any follow-up questions, drop them in the comments. Don't forget, like, subscribe, all those good things help the channel grow. All proceeds get donated to the Amphibious Tractor Memorial, which I'm a board member of. And I heard you say it on the podcast earlier, General. Yes.
Yes.
That's right. That's what I did. All right, everybody. Have a great night now. Take care.
God bless you all, and Semper Fidelis.
Semper Fi, sir.